Before you think, before you move, there is a pull, a secret longing. Most people are busy fighting desire or letting it rule them. Iqbal teaches that desire is not the enemy, it is the material from which the self is formed. But left unexamined, it destroys. Purified and directed, it becomes destiny. This episode explores desire as the origin of motion, not the enemy, but the raw material of the self. The task is purification and direction, so desire becomes destiny, not destruction. Today, we continue our 50-part journey through Khudi, the masterpiece where Allama Iqbal reveals the inner secrets of the self. This is episode 11. Take a deep breath, calm your mind, and let the wisdom unfold. Desire is the first motion of the soul. Before thought, before intention, before action, there is longing. Every journey begins not with a step, but with a desire that makes the step possible. Without desire, the self remains asleep. It lives, but it does not awaken. It survives, but it does not become. Desire is the spark that ignites becoming. Some fear desire, as if wanting is a danger, a temptation, a weakness. But to fear desire is to fear growth itself. The self expands only when it reaches toward something. Desire is the reaching. A life without desire is a life without direction. A self without longing is a self without motion. But not all desires awaken the self. Some desires scatter it. Some weaken it. Some fragment it until it becomes a shadow of what it might have been. Desire is fire. Fire can warm, and fire can destroy. The question is not whether we desire, but what we desire, and who we become because of it. There are desires that shrink the self. Desires for comfort, for praise, for distraction, for indulgence. These are desires that dissolve identity, because they require nothing from the deeper parts of us. They demand no sacrifice, no discipline, no courage. They feed the surface, but starve the core. Then there are desires that awaken the self. Desires for truth, for growth, for mastery, for contribution, for meaning. These desires burn differently. They do not consume. They refine. They transform restlessness into direction. They turn uncertainty into movement. They convert mere existence into evolution. Desire is not the enemy of the self. Desire is its raw material. The self becomes strong, not by killing desire, but by purifying it. Purification does not mean repression. Repression hardens desire and pushes it into shadow. Purification means examination, understanding, Clarity. It means asking, what does this desire make me become? The self must ask not, do I want this? But, who will I be if I pursue this? Some desires create a smaller self. Some desires create a greater self. The true measure of desire is its impact on becoming. If the desire bends us downward into weakness, vanity, or dependence, it is unworthy of the self. If the desire lifts us upward into courage, discipline, and purpose, it becomes the engine of destiny. Desire reveals our hidden nature. The coward desires safety. The brave desire challenge. The shallow desire attention. The deep desire transformation. The lost desire escape. The awakened desire truth. What we long for is the mirror of what we are. Changing desire is changing identity. Desire is the voice of the self before it learns to speak in words. It is the instinct of the soul, moving toward what completes it. Desire pulls us forward, long before the mind understands why. The mind explains desire, but desire initiates movement. The self is drawn to its future, like a seed is drawn to the sun, before it even knows what light is. There is a longing that wounds, and a longing that heals. Wounding desire appears bright, but leaves the soul empty. Healing desire appears difficult, but leaves the soul growing. The first offers excitement. The second offers transformation. The first demands escape. The second demands effort. One burns quickly. The other burns forever. A person becomes what they consistently desire, not what they occasionally wish for, but what they hunger for deeply, even in silence. A single desire, held long enough, becomes destiny. Where attention goes, life follows. Where longing rests, the self begins to move. Desire needs direction. When desire is unfocused, the self becomes scattered. When desire is divided, the self becomes weak. When desire is disciplined, the self becomes powerful. The focused self is unstoppable. Every great transformation in history began with longing. Longing for truth. Longing for justice. Longing for freedom. Longing for beauty. Longing for God. Longing is the first revolution. The self is not destroyed by difficulty. It is destroyed by meaningless desire. The great challenge of life is not to kill desire, but to choose the desires worthy of your soul. The mind can be deceived. The body can be persuaded. But the heart knows. When a desire is false, the heart becomes restless. When a desire is true, the heart becomes still. Restlessness is not always a problem. Sometimes it is the soul trying to redirect your life. There are desires we inherit from society, from culture, from comparison. These desires do not belong to us. They crowd the self and drown the deeper voice. The journey of becoming begins by separating borrowed desires from authentic longing. To know what you truly want is to know who you truly are. And to change what you want is to change who you will become. True desire does not beg for approval. It does not seek permission. It speaks quietly, but it does not silence itself. It stays. It endures. It returns. It waits for us to listen. What is real is persistent. The self grows when desire matures. Immature desire seeks pleasure. Mature desire seeks purpose. Immature desire seeks possession. Mature desire seeks meaning. Immature desire seeks escape. Mature desire seeks expansion. When desire matures, the self matures. To purify desire is to direct the fire within us. Fire scattered becomes destruction. Fire focused becomes creation. The self is the shape of its fire. Every desire carries a direction, and every direction shapes destiny. A small desire creates a small life. A divided desire creates a divided life. A cowardly desire creates a cowardly life. But a noble desire creates a life that rises. The self leans toward what it longs for. Slowly, quietly, continuously. Desire whispers the future into the present. Before destiny appears in the world, it grows in the unseen soil of the heart. There are desires that make us slaves, and desires that make us free. When we desire what the world desires for us, we become predictable, replaceable, lost within comparison. But when we desire according to the call of our own soul, we become unrepeatable. Authenticity begins when desire begins to speak with its own voice. The shaping of desire is the shaping of character. A person who desires only comfort will avoid every challenge and remain forever untested. A person who desires praise will live as a mirror, reflecting whatever others want to see. A person who desires power, but not responsibility, will become dangerous to themselves and others. But the person who desires truth above convenience, growth above ease, meaning above pleasure, that person becomes real. Desire is not what the self feels. Desire is what the self is willing to pay for. Cheap desires require nothing. Expensive desires require transformation. We know the worth of a desire, not by its intensity, but by the price we are willing to pay to honor it. Sacrifice reveals sincerity. The self deepens When a desire stretches it, it shrinks. When a desire weakens it, there are desires that lift the eyes toward what is possible, and desires that pull the heart toward what is easier. The self must learn to distinguish possibility from ease. Ease offers escape. Possibility offers evolution. One protects who we are. The other reveals who we could be. The strongest desires are not chosen. They are discovered. They arise from the deeper layers of the self. From conscience. From intuition. From the inner voice that does not shout, but persists. This persistence is a sign. The desire comes from the center, not the surface. Longing is not weakness. Longing is guidance. It is the compass of the soul, pointing toward its unfinished truth. Every longing that elevates us is a message from the future self, calling us forward. Desire is the first teacher. It teaches us what we value, what we lack, what we are ready to become. It reveals the distance between who we are and who we could be. The honest examination of desire is the beginning of self-knowledge. To know desire is to understand direction. To understand direction is to understand destiny. A single desire pursued with consistency can reshape an entire life. A life without a central desire becomes scattered, reactive, lost in the noise of the world. Desire is the root from which will grows. Will is the discipline to choose. Desire is the emotion that initiates choice. Will gives structure. Desire gives motion. Both are needed. Without desire, will collapses into dry obligation. Without will, desire collapses into fantasy. The union of desire and will is the birth of purpose. Some desires reveal their worth only in the presence of hardship. When the path becomes difficult, false desires disappear. They wither. They betray us. But true desires remain. Hardship clarifies desire. The way fire clarifies metal. A desire that cannot survive difficulty is not a desire worth living for. The self must therefore ask, what do I desire enough to suffer for? Suffering, in this sense, is not punishment. It is proof. Proof that the desire is rooted deeply enough to anchor identity, deeply enough to justify discipline, deeply enough to outlast fear. The path of desire is the path of becoming. Every desire fulfilled expands the self. Every desire abandoned weakens it. Every desire resisted purifies it. Every desire surrendered transforms it. The transformation of desire is the transformation of destiny. A shift in desire is a shift in life. The smallest inner change can redirect the entire future. The self does not evolve in dramatic leaps. It evolves in the quiet turning of desire. There is a desire beneath desire, a longing beneath longing, a desire not for objects, but for states of being, for freedom, for presence, for connection, for meaning, for transcendence, for God. These deeper desires are the architecture of the soul. When the self aligns with them, life becomes coherent. When the self resists them, life becomes chaotic. Every superficial desire is temporary. Every true desire is eternal. Temporary desire ends in exhaustion. True desire ends in creation. Temporary desire ends in possession. True desire ends in transformation. Temporary desire ends in escape. True desire ends in awakening. The self cannot exist fully without answering the call of its deepest desire. Desire shapes attention. Attention shapes action. Action shapes character. Character shapes destiny. Everything begins with what the self wants enough to move toward. The tragedy of many lives is not that they fail, but that they longed for too little. A small desire creates a confined world. A great desire creates a vast one. The soul grows to the size of its longing. Nothing expands the self like the desire to serve something greater than the self. The desire to give, the desire to uplift, the desire to build, the desire to illuminate, the desire to heal, the desire to awaken. These desires create a self that time cannot dissolve. A person becomes free, not by escaping desire, but by choosing desire consciously. Freedom is not the absence of longing. Freedom is the mastery of longing. The greatest prison is not the world outside us, but the unexamined desire inside us. The greatest liberation is not the change of circumstances, but the change of longing. The self becomes wise when it stops asking life, "What can I take?" and begins asking, "What must I become?" Becoming is the highest desire. It contains all others. Desire is not an enemy to fight. It is a force to guide. A river that is directed can power a city. A river that is uncontrolled can destroy it. So it is with desire. The self that directs desire creates destiny. The self that is directed by desire becomes lost within itself. When desire becomes clear, life begins to align. Opportunities appear. People enter. Paths open. Strength awakens. Fear weakens. Clarity of desire is clarity of direction. When we know what we long for, we know where to go. There will always be voices, inside and outside, that tell us to aim smaller. Voices that say, do not dream too far. Do not want too deeply. Do not risk too much. Do not reach too high. But the self is not built for small destinations. It is built for expansion. Desire is the engine of that expansion. The world is changed by those who refused to reduce their longing to the size of their fear. Fear is the thief of desire. Fear disguises itself as practicality, realism, caution, maturity. But fear's true aim is to limit the horizon of the self. Fear kills desire before desire can grow enough to demand transformation. To protect desire, the self must confront fear, not by eliminating it, but by acting despite it. Courage does not erase fear. Courage chooses desire over fear. False desires shout. True desires whisper. False desires demand immediate satisfaction. True desires are patient. False desires inflate the ego. True desires refine the ego. False desires pull outward. True desires pull inward. The whisper is the voice that guides. The shout is the noise that distracts. Listen to the whisper. There is a desire planted in every soul, a longing to become whole. Some call it purpose. Others call it conscience. Others call it calling. Iqbal called it the seed of Khudi, the self that seeks its completion. This desire does not fade. It remains even when ignored. It returns even when resisted. It strengthens even when starved. It outlives every false desire that competes with it. It is the desire that cannot be killed. The self becomes divided when its deeper desire and its daily choices point in different directions. No life can be peaceful when it betrays its own longing. Alignment begins when we stop running from what we truly want. Honoring desire is honoring identity. The path of desire is not linear. There will be moments of confusion, doubt, disappointment, delay. Desire matures in delay. If every desire were fulfilled easily, the self would remain shallow. The distance between longing and fulfillment is where character forms. The self grows in the space between want and achievement. Effort deepens desire. Struggle purifies desire. Patience strengthens desire. Time reveals which desires are worth keeping and which must be left behind. Loss clarifies desire like nothing else. When we lose what is false, the self feels relief. When we lose what is true, the self feels direction. Loss does not take from us. Loss uncovers us. It reveals what desire was hiding beneath attachment. There is a desire that outlasts ambition, a desire that outlasts fear, a desire that outlasts pain, the desire to become the highest version of oneself. This desire is not loud. It is steady. It is not dramatic. It is enduring. It does not come from the world. It comes from the essence of the soul. A life becomes powerful when its deepest desire becomes its daily discipline. Desire without discipline dissolves. Discipline without desire becomes hollow. But when desire and discipline unite, they generate a force that reshapes destiny. Greatness is not an act. It is a direction. And desire is the compass that sets the direction. What we desire most pulls us through every obstacle, every doubt, every night of uncertainty. The future belongs to those whose desire outlives their fear. Desire is the most sincere prayer, not the prayer spoken in words, but the prayer lived in longing. The universe responds, not to what we say, but to what we want deeply enough to move toward. With our entire being, the self becomes visible to God through the direction of its desire. If desire is fire, then faith is the light that rises from it. Faith is the trust that what we long for is possible, that the path is worth walking, that the self is capable of becoming equal to its own longing. Faith does not guarantee outcome. Faith guarantees movement. Every desire tests the self. Shallow desires test discipline. Deep desires test identity. Highest desires test the soul. When a desire asks us to change into someone more courageous, more truthful, more responsible, more awake, that desire is a gift. All creation begins with desire. Creation of art, creation of knowledge, creation of character, creation of destiny. The cosmos expands through longing. The self expands in the same way. Some say desire causes suffering, but desire does not cause suffering. Misguided desire causes suffering. Unexamined desire causes suffering. Desire without direction causes suffering. But true desire, desire aligned with the soul, heals. It aligns the inner world and gives meaning to the outer world. A day will come when every false desire will exhaust itself. On that day, what remains is the longing that cannot be shaken. This longing is the path. It is the truth. It is the calling of the inner self. When desire aligns with truth, action aligns with destiny. The self becomes unified. Time becomes meaningful. Struggle becomes sacred. Life becomes coherent. Death becomes completion. Desire becomes the fire of becoming. The self, standing in full awareness of its longing, finally understands: I am not here to silence desire. I am here to transform it, to refine it, to follow it into who I must become. And with that understanding, the soul begins to rise.